Jose Santana's with us today. Jose, welcome back.
Thank you, Bruce. Good afternoon. Thank you for having me.
Can you talk a little bit about emergency preparedness that the BOP takes when there are storms? I know you've probably survived at least one or two hurricanes yourself during your tours of duty. Can you talk a little bit about that?
I had to sleep, and I remember back in when we were activating MDC Guaynabo, we had to sleep inside because it was Hurricane Carmen or something came by, and we stayed at the institution. I had to leave for a little bit, get my family ready. My wife and the little ones, both two little ones were infants, so I had to go prepare them and then go hit the institution to get ready, activate the visitation room for families of our institution staff to stay there. And actually, I slept in my office for a night or two. I remember that. But needless to say, when Hurricane Rita, Katrina, and all that were at Beaumont, I was in the regional office. We activated the command center. I was, I had the graveyard shift there, manning the command center and preparing. But it takes a lot to prepare an institution of 1,500, 2,000 inmates to have plenty of food, plenty of water, plenty of everything for at least 2 weeks. It's a big challenge, and imagine that expanded by the pandemic. So it's very, very challenging. I tell you, it was bad because we didn't know if we were going to evacuate the whole institution. And back then, I'm talking about 2006, when Rita and Katrina were hitting those areas, Oakdale, Louisiana, Beaumont, all those institutions in the South Central region, which you were part of that, Bruce, South Central region. So we had that dilemma. Where are we going to put over 5,000, 6,000 inmates? I'm talking about an example of the Beaumont complex. The Beaumont complex had the penitentiary, high security facility, had the medium security facility, had the low security facility, and the camp. All four institutions, it was over 5,000 inmates of all types of security. Where are you going to take that population to? Where are you going to place them? You can't mix them because obviously you got high, mediums, lows, and minimum security inmates. So it was decided to stay in place until those institutions could resist Category 5 hurricane. And most of them are built to withstand earthquakes. They have, but needless to say, the Bureau had the dilemma to leave, evacuate the whole place, or stay in place. It was decided to stay in place. We stayed in place until after the storm, when the water started, the surge came in, and the water came in, and it was by boat only you could get to that institution. And the water started climbing up. At the lowest place, we had to bring the inmates up to the highest tiers of the facilities. And one of the institutions, we had to evacuate. The water was too much. The inmates, imagine working with power, generator power. Some of the generator power went down because obviously so much water.
I got a fun story on generators. You ready for this?
It was unbearable. So we had to evacuate one of the institutions, over 2,000 inmates.
They had ordered generators, and I think the generators, interestingly, and this is during my tour in the command center, some of the generators that they had ordered were from Brazil. And they had these two brand new generators, man, they couldn't use because they didn't have the adapters. They couldn't. There was something about the generators. Do you remember that at all?
Yes. There were massive generators. They were the biggest ones that we could get at that time, and they couldn't connect because the connectors were different. So it's a challenging time when an emergency like that of that caliber comes to play, and you have lives of inmates. You can't forget the human side of corrections when those situations happen, just like this COVID-19 pandemic. It's a challenging time in the Bureau of Prisons. My heart goes out to all the staff and the brave people that work in prisons. Man, they are really heroes. There you have it, FCC Beaumont. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Just pulled it from the collection over here. Yeah. So, yeah, man, it's good stuff. I remember HNT and SORT and emergency preparedness teams. We had staff members that were sleeping in cells that were TDY.
Oh yeah, we had so many people there sleeping in the institution because they couldn't come out. You could only go out of that place when Rita and Katrina hit on boat until the National Guard came in and kind of helped out and brought us some more provisions after a couple of weeks, and the water receded and we got pumps in there, started pumping water out. Then we let some staff go to check their homes, and it was a disaster because people were wanting to check their homes and go and see what happened to their places and their families, because they had to stay in the institution and they couldn't get out. So, I mean, the inmates were restless. I remember I was manning the phone lines, the 1-800 number we established for inmates' family to keep in touch, and people were crying. Families were desperate. I mean, it was a challenge. It was a challenge, big time.
Definitely a challenge. Well, and we just hope that now, actually, here recently, one of our cases, my case, but it was a female that she's supposed to go to Mariana and could never get there, right? Because the fence blew down, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And they sent everybody from Mariana to Yazoo or wherever.
That was during Hurricane Michael recently here last year. We had individuals. We had some of our clients that were at Mariana at the Medium, and they were transferred to Yazoo USP. Actually, the USP Yazoo had not been activated fully, and they were using it as a medium security facility versus a full-blown penitentiary. So they're still there, Bruce. Those inmates are still
I know. They never came back. I mean,
Mariana hadn't recovered fully. They were getting it to open up, but then came all these hurricanes again, and so they had to put a stop on it. I think there's a cadre working on the getting the institution back online.
Yeah, there is. So, we had some people that were moved to other institutions. Nothing you can do about it. That affects your visitation. It affects your mail. Sometimes it greatly affects your living environment. And you're with a bunch of people that you may or may not want to be around because you're in this forced play of being now housed in an institution. Anyway, that you didn't intend on being that way. So with these storms and with COVID-19 and seemingly thousands of inmates have now left for home confinement due to CARES Act or compassionate release. First step, leaving the mainline institutions for home confinement. And so I think it's just now, right, that some of the lows are able to, if somebody's points go down to camp level, that they can go to the satellite camp next door. But for the longest time, right, some of these folks in these complexes were just frozen in their joint. And if they would, right, go ahead.
What happened was they had to put a limit on the movement, additional limit on movement inside, internal moves of the Bureau of Prisons for lesser security, greater security, all those type of transfers were put on a halt because of the capacity at the institutions. So they had to follow the CDC guidelines as to capacity to allow, to a certain degree, within the security structure of managing the inside of a secure facility. They had to limit the capacities, and so movement was halted. But recently here, I guess a couple of weeks ago, it opened back up to renew the movement of lesser security inmates, greater security transfers, and all other type of transfers. So the Bureau is gradually coming back up to those type. We've seen recently here, we've seen some movement also from the marshals, Bruce, moving inmates out of the Bureau and moving inmates, staging them at places to get them moved to their designated facilities. The Bureau is trying to go back as normal as they can with those type of initial commitments.
Exactly. So things will get back to a better place. Right now, we have a lot of clients in awaiting to become full BOP card-carrying inmates, and they're not BOP card-carrying inmates right now because they're being held by the United States Marshal Service in a variety of different places, right?
Correct.
I mean, we got county jails, we got private detention centers that house federal inmates. And man, this has been frustrating for a lot of our family members out there that call us wanting us to kind of jump in there and help with the situation with their loved one. But the problem is that they're not a federal inmate for real at this moment. They're still like people without a country. They're in transit. They're not, I mean, they're incarcerated. They're being detained. They're earning time toward their sentence. Make no mistake about it. I mean, they're still doing their time. But in terms of case management and looking at First Step Act credits and what this and that, and looking at kind of formalized schedules of healthcare and those things, man, that's out the window. That's not even there until you arrive at a formal BOP facility. And so with these like storms that have happened and happening right now with Hurricane Sally, it's going to hit any moment, right near the mouth of the Mississippi or whatever. And so there's quite a few institutions, right, from Beaumont up to Mariana. And that's going to be a slow-moving storm, folks. That's just going to dump water. Just dump and dump and dump and dump. And that's going to be the killer. It won't be the rain. It'll be the fact that stupid storm sits over the southeast United States. I hope it doesn't. And it's just going to dump a crap ton of water. And that's going to pose problems. Anyway.
Oversaturated ground already. So it will be flooding. It would be, situations where the water is going to look where to go through. And unfortunately, those institutions, they're built well, but they are not young structures anymore, even though the youngest is probably Beaumont, which was built in 96, 94, 95, 96, and probably Pollock, Louisiana. But those institutions have been, hit over and over by these type of climate situations. So it is a challenge. Plus, a correctional facility, a Terra and Ware, every day, 24/7, with thousands of inmates, going in those facilities, it will take a hit. It will be challenging to manage. And the dilemma is, do you leave the place and move out, or do you stay in place? Either which way it's not a good decision, but the best thing is to stay in place until you can, like we did with Katrina and Rita at Beaumont, and we didn't lose any inmates as a consequence of those storms. So.
Man, it was such a beatdown. Katrina hit. We had parish prisons that were literally destroyed in Louisiana. In several of those parish prisons, we had federal guys. Mm-hmm. And on one of my command center moments, there was a guy, and he had like this this code like Papa 95 death or whatever. We're looking at rosters on this guy. Well, Jose, this dude was a death row inmate who was on writ. We couldn't find him. And so, we found him. But I mean, the complete, bro, we were on that satellite phone having the buses pull over like, is this dude? Who are you? Like, I'm Sergeant such and such from such and such parish prison. Dude's accent was so thick I needed an interpreter. It's like, is this guy on the bus? Like, is he on the bus?
Yes.
I shit you not. And talk about, and who we worked with at the time, nudge, nudge, wink, wink, the guy who loved to give ass chewings freely, toothpicks. Like, no, I'm not taking this one, man. The dude is just, I didn't pack the bus in such and such parish, you know what I mean? Yeah. But anyway, man, isn't that amazing how long story short, when you move inmates in a storm, come on, man, like that is, you're taking all kind of risks for society, all kind of risks for the inmates, for the staff. If you got to do what you got to do, don't get me wrong, but God, man, that dude was a death row dude on writ.
And what we found on those circumstances, we dealt with a lot of those inmates, and we helped actually Louisiana a lot. But the fact was that those inmates were very anxious. The anxiety level was up. But when it came to it, they really cooperated with the authorities. They were observant. They were complying. They were obeying because their life was up to the transporting officers. We help we send a special SORT team up to the bridge in Louisiana where those inmates were placed. Right. Yeah. And then we send buses to rescue those inmates out of there to move them from the Bureau of Prisons. And the marshals were there also helping out. So it was interesting times. It was like no other times. I think the pandemic here is a total different situation because it's internal. It's not external. It doesn't affect externally, but in a way it does. But the managing of the internal security procedures of an institution are impacted all the way around because just think about it. Who works the kitchen? Who works the commissary? Who works all those places? Are the inmate groups inside. So with physical distancing and social distancing laws, you can't have a normal operation inside a secure structure or a secure facility. So managing an institution like a high security facility, that is insane nowadays.
Gladiator school's gone wild, man.
Yeah.
But there was a darker side to that. I like what you said about the inmates that were cooperative. But some of those joints, I'm not talking about our joints, but their joints in Louisiana where we couldn't get a bus to them. And those dudes were just out on the yard and people were just, it was savagery, bro. Mm-hmm. Food, people just throwing, it was, people got hurt and assaulted and stuff like that. So there was a moment there where we couldn't, they couldn't evacuate their own joints and we couldn't necessarily get the buses down from Raybrook or wherever, to get to them in a timely manner that lots of some lives lost and whatever, not due to the hurricane, just due to savagery and assaultive behavior, combative behavior among higher security inmates. But that's neither here nor there. But that is the reality of the situation. Like you said, these mediums and highs, penitentiaries, it's just a different level of inmate and different things can happen.
Absolutely.